I'm Edward Enninful, and welcome to Vogue Visionaries. We established this series to offer inspiration and practical advice to those looking to break into the creative industries, something we know has been incredibly difficult in the context of the last year. We've developed Visionaries in partnership with YouTube, a platform that many of you go to learn new skills and build creative careers. We hope this class is a step towards a bright and brilliant future.
I like to think it's because I'm too proud. Hello, I'm Celeste, and this is my Vogue Visionaries. I'm a singer and I also write songs. I'm here in Northwest London in the studio where I recorded my debut album, Not Your Muse, and I'm so excited to share with you parts of my process from the beginning until the present day. The main thing that I like about writing songs is that I find I just have an urgency and somewhat a desperation to express myself, and songs became almost therapeutic in doing so. In this class, we're going to cover starting out in the industry, how to develop your sound, writing the perfect song for you, tips on collaboration, and how to deal with critics. The class is in 5 chapters. You can use the time bar below to skip to any chapter you would like. Please don't mistake me for a woman who cares well. The first artist I remember listening to as a child was Aretha Franklin, which I always used to listen to like in the car of my granddad. And Nina Simone and Ella Fitzgerald were the other 2 main singers that I remember from that age. And actually, the first time that I bought like a piece of music, not with my own money, but with my nan, we walked down this place called Romford Market, and there was a stall that sold like vinyl, tapes, and some CDs, and there were all these like acetate pockets like hanging up on one side of it, and tucked into one of them was an Otis Redding tape, and I kind of just pointed it and picked it out. And my nan was like, oh, your granddad would love that. He loves Otis Redding. So we bought it, and it was probably like £2 or £3 or something. And then I gave it to him for his birthday, and then that's kind of how I heard Otis Redding. And something I always had common ground in was music, and I was always a fan. And I think a part of that was seeing adults kind of like let go and seemingly free, and music kind of brought that. Later on, as a teenager, those singers were my like starting point to then discover more music from those genres. I remember when I was like 10, my mom arranged for me to go to these like ballet classes every Saturday while she was at work. And one of the teachers there, her name was Miss Ross. She'd heard me singing in the corridors or something one Saturday. And she actually approached my mum after school and said, would Celeste like to come here? Do you think full time? Because it was a performing arts school for the rest of the week, like drama, dancing, singing. And then it was later, going to secondary school, there was a school talent show, and my friends knew they couldn't really sing, but they knew I could for some reason. And they asked if I would be in their group. And that kind of broke the ice, and I kind of had to get over my shyness and perform in front of people. And I think when you're a child, you're a bit more uninhibited, you know, you can sing in front of people and you can put on a bit more of a show. And then there came a stage for me as I got older, where I was all of a sudden like a bit more aware of who I was and what I was doing and who was in front of me. And sort of throwing myself into the deep end at different points really helped me to kind of gather the confidence to go forth and want to pursue a career in music. 2 things I did that sort of brought me out of my shell. I think number 1 was doing my first gig, and some boys that were in my college asked me if I wanted to play a show with them. And in my head, I was so nervous, but I knew I could do it. So I just said yes, even though all of the anxiety in me just wanted to say no and kind of just be quiet and do something else. And the second way I'd say that I came out of my shell, Hmm. Yeah. I think actually, for me, it was putting a band together with peers, like musical peers that I really looked up to. That's always an important thing to do, really. It's kind of like to show up to people that you really respect. And when you take that leap, it sort of is such a significant shift in how you view yourself and you begin to see what you know you can do. So when I was about 18, I actually saw a film, and one of the singers that was profiled in this film was a blues singer called Little Walter. And straight away, I was just really in awe of him, and he just had such charm and charisma in how he moved and how he sang. And I remember about 2 months later, I got a microphone and an interface for my birthday, and I decided to record a cover of that song. And I just recorded it in my bedroom, and it was very rough and sort of like spit and sawdust. It wasn't like this ultra clean, like auto-tuned thing, because I just didn't have access to that equipment, and I wouldn't have wanted it to be like that either. I remember like listening to a Mike Skinner podcast, and I can't remember exactly what song it was. It might have been Original Pirate Material. But I think he actually recorded that vocal in a wardrobe with his duvet around him to make sure that he had the right sound for the vocal and for the mic. And that's the kind of stuff I think you do when you're first starting out. The thing that's amazing now with all of the new computer programs is you can find such amazing plugins and sounds. I think when I first started writing music, that was my hindrance a little bit, because I was looking for like a live room sound and I couldn't really get it out of a computer. So I kind of leaned on sampling, because then I could like get some of those rich textures. But actually now the new plugins sound so real and like so authentic that you can just be on your laptop or be on your computer and just put your headphones on, and you can like take yourself into another world and into another era, if you like. So I recommend saving up, trying to get yourself a laptop, get Logic or one of those things downloaded, and just like sit with your headphones and go for it. And yeah, you don't even have to make that much noise, so it's quite good. Top tip on finding an audience. This is actually a tricky one for me, because in the last year where my audience has grown the most, it has actually been a year where I haven't been able to see those people face to face at a show or backstage or anything like that. I kind of did two things. Something I recognized when I first moved to London and I started going to parties and I started seeing the two worlds of fashion and music were very much intrinsic. So I definitely utilized Instagram about 3.5 years ago to kind of make sure I had a stake in all of that. And then the other thing that has been very, very important is playing shows. The best places to perform when you're just starting out, definitely small venues, intimate spaces where everyone can feel quite close, and then it can kind of breed an atmosphere of like, we're the only ones witnessing this, and there's so few of us, but we're all kind of like, you know, crammed in, bursting out the doors because we've all come to see this person. And I think things like that definitely create a lot of hype and a lot of buzz around a new artist when they're first starting out. There's a trick quite often with new artists where they kind of know a number of how many tickets they could sell. So say if it's like 120 tickets to begin with, and they purposefully get a venue that's like 50 or 60 person capacity. So then all of those people turn up, and then there's also like a line outside of people that are desperate to come in. And I think that seems to be quite a sort of superficial but quite a useful device to use when you're first starting out. My tip for breaking into the industry today: there's so many things that people are doing at the moment, and I've gone quite a traditional route myself in joining forces with a label. And nowadays, there's so many independent artists that do so well because you have the means to have your voice heard by using all of these different platforms like YouTube and uploading yourself to streaming platforms and all of that sort of thing. A tip in developing, I think, your skills and evolving your skills as a writer and a singer, and I guess essentially like someone that's telling stories, is to keep persisting in writing even when you don't get the natural feeling to follow something, and you don't necessarily always get a piece of music that's going to lead to you writing your most cathartic or most important or most intelligent piece of music. But I think by remaining in the practice and keeping the muscle exercised, when you do hear something that gives you that big shift and moves you so dramatically and so significant, your brain and your body and everything is ready to be aligned, and just everything comes at once then, the melody, the feeling, the lyrics and the vocal. When I first signed with a label, I met with all of these different people that were working in the different departments of the label. And at that moment when I went in that room and met those people, I wasn't exactly sure what everybody did, but it was a significant shift from working with my manager Duncan in a team of like 2 or 3 of us to all of a sudden being equipped with like a press department, which helps you get interviews. There's a TV rep who helps you get to perform on TV programs like Jules Holland and perhaps Graham Norton. When you're independent, you sometimes feel like you reach this ceiling and you're like, why can't I be doing this magazine cover, or why can't I be on this TV show? And you kind of realize it's because a lot of the labels are so plugged into those places that it's sometimes harder for the independent artist to get a look in. So it really helps in you sort of leveraging your place and to find a platform. When the pandemic came about, at first, I think probably like a lot of us, I was naive in that I thought it would just be maybe like a month or 2 months. There was definitely a lot of clambering to just like make sure that I utilized this kind of momentum that I'd built by the beginning of 2020 and to not let it kind of slip away. And in that time, I just remained quite relentless. Like any opportunity that came my way, I just took it unless it just really didn't feel right. In that time, I shot music videos in my flat. People had kind of learnt new ways to be able to continue doing the work that we do, finding like repurposed ways of doing things. Generally, my tip for staying inspired and motivated is making sure that you're actually doing the thing that you love and you're remaining in touch with what it is you love. So, for example, for me in making music in the last few years, there's definitely been times where I found it really difficult, and I think those have been the times where I haven't really remained in touch with what brought me here in the first place, which was kind of like telling stories through music. Just remaining in touch with that is so important. I think something that happens quite a lot is people have success perhaps with like their first or second album, and then maybe they're in a position where they can get all kinds of people to work with them, and they go and work with all of these people that are huge or big, players or whatever, but then they kind of have lost those relationships with the people that really understood them from the beginning and really understood what they were wanting to do. And I think it's about evolving. It's not about just changing something so erratically and so dramatically. And so I think to have a reinvention or a change, you kind of have to recognize the key parts of what is you within that. I know for me, the things that I'd want to retain and take forward into sort of my own evolution is like knowing my phrasing, knowing my voice in terms of like my singing voice, knowing the things that I want to talk about and knowing the ways in which I wouldn't express them and wouldn't talk about them. And for me, that's just like simple stuff like I don't use popular culture terminology because I think that it gets dated quickly and like little things like that. But everybody has their things that they just know, like, this is what I do, this is what I don't do. And you should know what those are within yourself, I think. Okay, a vocal warm-up for me would be something very simple, just like this. E, E. And one of the most important things about doing that exercise is engaging with your diaphragm and making sure that all of the air that you use is being pushed up through from your diaphragm as to not put too much pressure on your throat. So the vocal folds that just sit here, if they begin to vibrate too hard and knock against each other, that's what can cause nodes. And that's what can happen sometimes if you shout or you raise your voice without kind of using that area, the diaphragm. Mostly how I find inspiration for lyrics is kind of just thinking about some of my own experiences and how to put those into words, but also sometimes if I kind of run out of my own things to talk about, or if I don't really feel like I'm in a position to talk about my own thing, I kind of look to the world and try to write on my observations of other people's experiences. And sometimes that can be the people that are still in sort of like my immediate sort of circle or family, and sometimes it's wider than that and it's more about people that I don't know, even people that I pass in the street. And I think sometimes that's when actually your better work comes about. You write the music that is more understood by more people than just yourself, basically. I'd say harnessing emotion in a song is something that's quite invisible, and it's something that you can't quite describe. It's like something that tugs and pulls me towards that piece of music and sort of like demands me to bring something to it. And I think when that comes, it's just being aware of what a gift that moment really is and making the most of it and just giving yourself to it as much as you possibly can. Well, my idea of what makes a successful song is probably very different to, like a label's version of what makes a successful song. But for me, a successful song is really getting to like be my true self. And that means like in the sonic of the song, in the lyric of the song, and how my voice sounds on that song. It's about kind of detailing all of those things and bringing them together, and there being a real truth and sort of earnest quality about it. Whenever I'm in a space where I'm writing, my phone goes off and it goes out the room or it goes to one side, and I just have a notebook or a piece of paper and a pencil, and I just write and write and write, and I never rub anything out, and I just come up with the melody first and let that kind of be the blueprint to where the lyrics should come from. And I think sometimes when you just get the right melody that goes with the piece of music, like the chord progression, it almost like whispers the words to you, and then you just write them down and don't stop. Don't be scared to write a bad song, because everybody has to write a ton of absolutely rubbish songs until they get to the good bit. I'd never write on my phone as well, because I feel like there's so much in a phone that just isn't giving. Okay, so here are some tatty old books, and there's a lot of lyrics. There's this one that I started writing called I'm New Here, and the lyric just says, so that I don't intrude, so that I don't seem rude, so that I am see-through, knowing that you want me to. So that I don't intrude, so that I don't seem rude, so that I am see-through, knowing that you want me to. It's basically a song where I'm saying, I'm new to love and I'm new to all of these things, so excuse me if I get things wrong sometimes, because I'm going to. And those are like my first sort of like lyrics that kind of said, I guess, what my subconscious was thinking in those moments. We could do the chorus. I'm just new here, came out of nowhere. I'm just looking at the bus, so fresh, just looking new. And then that's kind of like the melody, and I kind of just sketch a melody until more lyrics are revealed like within it. So fresh out the box, I'm looking at some brand new status. So just that I'm hoping that you know I'm just new here. I'm just new here. Yeah, that's kind of how we piece it together. Like, that's a song that we've been working on, and I hope that would end up on my second album, so that's a work in progress. There's some of my notes here about like my vocals, so things to go back to. Verse 1, tick, because I like the vocal on that, pre-tick, and then chorus, I've got some notes on it that says, the ams, as in those words, are too harsh. So I'll go back to that, and then I have another version of it, and then I've kind of said, better vocal delivery, just too short, which to me I think meant I didn't have enough breath in the vocal line. I have a lot of different demos and some that I'm probably never going to use for myself. And in being published by a publishing company, they actually have your whole repertoire on their books. And then they can look to pitch it out to other people that perhaps don't write their own songs, that are looking for songs, but perhaps it's like, you know, one man's rubbish is another's treasure or whatever, you know, like it's kind of like it can work like that sometimes. Something that's actually been such a key part of my career and people getting to know my music in the last year has been sync, which means music that is put to motion picture, so in TV, film or adverts. And I haven't had like vastly sort of like commercially successful pieces of music, but I have had a lot of opportunity with sync. So that's really helped me and also helped me in maintaining my relationship with my record label and with my publisher, because there's still some significant income from those sorts of things. One of those things had been writing a song for a film called The Trial of the Chicago 7, which was a Netflix original picture, which followed the story of the Chicago 7, who were 7 people tried for inciting a riot when they were actually just trying to protest. And I think that was in 1969. And for myself, to be in a position where myself and Daniel Pemberton are nominated for an Oscar for this particular song seems so far-fetched and surreal, knowing where my beginning was literally in my room recording songs, then taking that to being online and then taking it to a show and someone listening and saying, oh, I care about this and I think I can do something with this. And then to be in this position, there's always a portion of fortune, but also like hard work that goes into everything. And I think it's just being aware how to allow like those things to work together for you in the best way that they can. So this song is a song that ended up on my album and it's called The Promise. And Mark and myself actually wrote it in this room. We were recording some live stuff for one of the other songs and Mark kind of made a mistake and then sort of stumbled into these chords. And I was like, wait, this is amazing. And I knew exactly what it reminded me of straight away. And the band were recording in here. So we went into the corridor and we ended up writing the whole song in the corridor pretty much. And then we came in and we were like, we've written this song. And then the band came together on the arrangement for it. So yeah, this is The Promise. Who is it? You again. Thought you left, but you never go too far. Remember when we overslept that morning when our thing fell apart? But I never learned, I always lust and overtrust. I do it to myself. But I can't be burying these feelings when it's the best thing that I ever felt. You got my promise again. You had me pounding when you left. Knowing it's been ages, I'm taking you in. Thought I I think when you're looking for your collaborator, Mark is definitely someone that has that emotional sensitivity, which sometimes what he plays on guitar speaks to, what people describe as their soul or their subconscious. That's what Mark playing on guitar does for me. And what I found with him is that he's so easy to be around, and he's just allows things to happen naturally in the room in the way that they need to, without trying to force anything too much. And I think that's really important. And this is the second verse. Maybe by September I would have tried enough of other stuff to know that you weren't right. But we never learned, we always lost and over trust. It happens overnight. And I don't wanna be your enemy or something you need to pass the time. So excuse me if this comes as green, but sometimes I just wanna go back and rewind. You got my promise again. You had me pining when you left. Knowing it's been ages, I'm taking it in. Thought I'd be fine. I need to leave you behind. And this is kind of like the bridge, the middle A, I call it. And this is always after the second chorus. It's been a long time, same decisions I make slowly lead me back to you. I'm in the open, lose all sense of knowing. Are you onto someone new? It's been a burden, but the burden I'll take for a day or two. Well, it leaves me longing for a certain moment. I hear a familiar tune. Then that's where the song ends. I guess the first verse, I can't remember how many bars the first verse is, but when I get to the second verse, I always cut it in half. And then the pre-chorus, I sort of see that as something that always stays consistent. So like the pre-chorus and the chorus always maintain what they did the time before. And you don't have to do that. Like sometimes it's cool to change the pre-chorus melody or lyric, but usually I don't keep the exact same lyric, I do a variation. So in that version, I think in the first pre-chorus, it was, but I never learn, I always lost, I do it to myself. And then in the second pre-chorus, I said, we never learn, we always lost, it happens overnight. So it's kind of, I always try to like keep something consistent, but like do a little twist so it doesn't just feel like it's the same thing again and again and again. And I feel the second verse is always a good time to maybe like change the melody a bit, or like put in some extra words, change the rhythm a bit if you want to. When I was like 18, 19, starting out writing, I met a lot of people, and it's actually some of those people 5 years later that then signed me or published me or gave me an opportunity for a gig, because they kind of like kept me in their mind. And then when they saw that I was doing a bit more, they were like willing to like reach out their hand and help me out because how I interacted with them early on. And I think that's so important. For me, my mentor is really my manager, because he can be a bit more hard-lined and business-minded, but then he can also be like sympathetic and understanding to some of the things that I might be going through, because he's seen it with other artists and other people. I think definitely now that I'm sort of at another stage in my career, I definitely then want to like ask questions to other singers to know their experience and to know how they dealt with certain things at different stages. And recently I've had such an amazing conversation with Elton John, and actually at that moment in time that I spoke to him, probably a month after my album came out. I guess he recognized the stage that I was in my career, and he'd seen that I just released my debut album, and he'd been following my music for a little bit and always been playing my music on his shows and stuff. He said, like, the more you grow and the more you kind of prove yourself to be the artist that you know yourself to be, the more leverage you'll find yourself having. And so I kind of felt that within myself anyway, because I kind of took risks on making my first album and going against the grain a little bit, and then it paid off. So now there's like a little bit more trust in my hands to then take those ideas further the next time around. I don't really know who I'm a mentor to, if I am to anyone. I guess like collectively with my band, like working with them, writing this first album, a lot of them hadn't been in that scenario where they'd like written songs and recorded songs. And that's like a very different kind of form and discipline to like playing stuff live.
I've always said that I never really wrote any music till I met Celeste. Celeste is great.
My favorite thing about the industry is the fact that it can literally take you anywhere. You can travel the world. I'd say my least favorite thing about the industry, comparison. Like, comparison can be so healthy when you first start out, because it can draw a likeness to someone that's already existing, that's really good, and then other people can maybe think, oh, if they're like that, then I want to know about them. But I find definitely I get compared a lot to perhaps like other mixed race women when our music sits in very, very different realms, but perhaps they're just drawing that likeness because they think we look similar. I guess it goes back to that sort of thing that's, I guess, someone like Solange was speaking about on her album Seat at the Table, which was like saying like there's room for everyone, you know, and I think that it's being given the chance to show what is different about you, even if it's just ever so slightly, but how that slight difference is so valuable. Oh, wow. Well, the advice I have for dealing with critics, I think sometimes a critic may actually say something that you've actually recognized yourself, but I do actually think that you just can't take it too much to heart. Like, when you put so much of yourself into something and that's kind of all you've been focusing on, and then someone says something bad about it, it can really derail you in that way. But you just have to remember like all the things that you know, knew to be good about something. A mistake I made probably around age 21 was that I started to sort of do what I thought I should do because of like the perhaps expectation of other people more than what I actually wanted to do myself. And then that sort of took me off track at some point for like a year and a half, because I made a whole piece of music, I made an EP, but the sound of it just wasn't me at all. And I think I just listened too much to people around me that thought that I should be like someone that was like doing really well at the time. Again, that was sort of, they had compared me to another girl who was like of a mixed race background and thought that if I did a similar sounding music and presented it in a similar way that I would do well. And that didn't really serve its purpose in the end. And then I learned from that, and then I came back to doing things in the way that I felt was true to me. What I've said so many times, and I'll repeat myself again, is that you should always just be yourself. I think whenever you feel like you're wavering away from what that is, just question it and make sure that you're on track to being who that is. And I think that's so important. I think what I'm most proud of is kind of like my ability to sort of retain some normality in my life. I don't really get swept up in the kind of lifestyle that some people at the same stage in their career that I am could get swept up into. I'm just glad that I've managed to hold on to that and I haven't let it sort of go to my head and forget the people who really mean so much to me. The 3 most important lessons I've learned: sometimes disregarding your integrity does come back to bite you, so don't do it. The second most important thing I've learned is to just be respectful to everyone that's working with you and for you and around you. The third most important thing I've learned is to have boundaries when it comes to like working and like the time I need for myself, because I think I've had to be quite strict with people to not allow them to take too much from me so that I have that time for myself, kind of thing. So I'm Celeste. This has been my Vogue Visionaries, and thank you so much for watching.